Alright everyone, so today we're going to be doing something a little bit different. Today we're going to be building a class around a specific Space Marine chapter. Today, for our first episode of this, we are going to be doing the Imperial Fist. So, for those of you that don't know the Imperial Fist, they are the 7th Legion. Their Primarch is Rogaldorn. And while they are pretty versatile on the battlefield, they're mainly known for their ability to build one hell of a impenetrable defense. So that's what our class is going to be based around. So we are going to be using the Bulwark for this build. The main reason being, there's actually a couple, but the Bulwark is supposed to kind of be the tank class of Space Marine 2. Now, I do know a lot of people kind of use it as the healer based off the perk Invigorating Icon. However, we are going to be dropping that perk and we're going to be focusing on some different ones. But the other reason we're going to use the Bulwark is because not only the Imperial Fist, but a lot of their successor chapters, they do partake in a tradition where they gather some of their best duelists and they kind of host a friendly tournament. So I figured this would be the perfect class to use for them. So for starters, real quick, we're actually going to run through our weapons here, and then we're going to get into the perks. So for starters, I got to swap this out quick. But we are going to be using the bolt pistol. So even though this is primarily going to be a melee class, we are going to use the bolt pistol just because it is probably one of the more accurate ones. I know the Volcolite does shoot in just a straight kind of beam. However, I felt the bolt pistol was a little bit more appropriate to use with the class, plus the idea that you can just kind of headshot a couple enemies very quickly and then immediately get your shield back up. I thought that was pretty fitting for it. So we are going to be using the bolt pistol that is maximized for accuracy. That way we can quickly pop off those headshots, or if we do need to use it, we're not going to be out of cover too long. Then, for our melee weapon, we are going to be using the power sword. I personally am using the fencing variant. This is personally my favorite variant of the power sword. Now, I know a lot of people say fencing, it's kind of a crutch, but hey, if this is a crutch, then call me Stephen Hawking, because I love it. Also, the other reason I wanted to use it was because lore-wise, with the Imperial Fist being pretty strong with dueling in that, I did think that fencing was the appropriate option to go with. Also, because fencing does play a little bit more to the defense, and that's kind of one of the things the Imperial Fists are known for, I just felt that this particular variant was more appropriate. I did think about using the Power Fist because, you know, hey, using the Power Fist with the Imperial Fist, there's something that kind of felt right about it, but I think going based off of the lore, Power Sword's going to be the way to go. Now, where I think this class is going to get interesting is with the perk tree. So this is much different compared to what I normally run, but we're going to run through it real quick. And again, the main idea here is we just want pure survivability, and we want to make this class as hard to take down as possible. So for our first perk, we are going to be using Intimidating Aurora. Now, this is one that I use primarily with my regular Bulwark setup. Essentially, every time we get a perfectly timed parry, we are going to deal some area of effect damage to everything within a 5-meter radius. It is very small, but, you know, when you are getting kind of ganged up on by a whole horde of enemies, it can be a nice way to put some damage on some of the smaller ones. Next, we're going to use Armor of Contempt. So essentially, anytime that an enemy shoots at you and you have your shield up and you're able to deflect that damage, it's actually going to take the damage that you would have taken from that and disperse it to enemies immediately around you. This time, however, within a 10-meter radius. So believe it or not, this is actually my second run through for this video. I just did not like how the first one went, and I was actually kind of surprised at how useful this is. There were a lot of times where there were a whole bunch of like Hormagaunts and Termagants around me, and just from one of the regular Tyranid warriors popping shots at me, a lot of them were able kind of to just clear out by simply me running towards the Majoris enemy and not even paying attention to any of the Minoris around me. Finally, within core, we are going to use armor reinforcement. This perk is shared also with the assault class, and it's one that I love on there. It's on my primary setup for that. But all non-finisher gun strikes are going to restore 1 armor segment. So if you are able to get a gun strike that puts an enemy into a position where you're able to finish them off, you're actually going to be able to restore 2 armor segments off this, which is actually pretty nice, and it does make you harder to kill. Next, for our team perk, we are running Focus Restoration. So every 40 seconds, everyone within the squad, you're getting back 1 armor segment. Now, 40 seconds, it's not the greatest. You know, it can definitely feel like a bit of a long time. However, just like with some of the perks with the heavy, like whenever the Iron Halo goes down and you get that 1 random piece of armor, it is definitely something that you do notice helping you out throughout any of the operations. Next, moving into the gear, we are going to take Purity of Purpose. So enemies within the banner, they are going to take some area of effect damage. Now, I do also want to throw out, typically this was something that I ran on my main bulwark setup. However, I actually have switched over to that for rapid regeneration. The main reason being is the nerf that it initially had of being 300% faster, but 5 seconds, that 5 seconds has actually been changed to 10 seconds. So honestly, I feel like you could go with either perk. For me personally though, I wanted to go with Purity of Purpose just because I do want to be able to place down the banner and kind of have, you know, some of those moments of masculinity in that, where you're making that final stand against an unrelenting enemy. It just kind of seemed to fit a little bit better. Plus, we don't lose out any bit on the duration of the banner. Next, we are going to take Glory Shield. So all squad members that are within the banner's area of effect, not only will they take 20% less range damage, but our banner is also going to last 20% longer, which is just a nice little buff to have. So it's going to constantly be trying to replenish armor for us, which is going to be nice. That's going to help keep us alive. And then finally, within the gear perk, we do have Inspiration. So all squad members, as long as they are within that banner's area of effect, they're going to deal 20% damage. It doesn't matter if it's melee or range, it's a 20% damage buff on everything regardless. Then for the signature perk, we did change over to Defensive Mastery. This is actually very similar to one of the tactical perks. Whenever you pop your Auspex, it allows you to instantly take out a Majoris or Extremist enemy. However, this fits very well with kind of the dueling lore of a lot of the Imperial Fists and their successor chapters. So anytime you get a perfectly timed parry or block, it is going to instantly incapacitate a Majoris or Extremist level enemy. The cooldown, just like with the tactical, it is 120 seconds. However, even though you do have a pretty long wait time for it, it's something that you're going to constantly be feeling the effects of, and it's only going to be a net positive. So that's going to be the build. Next, what we're going to do is we are going to hop into an operation here. So we are going to do a private match, and initially when I filmed this, we did it on Ballistic Engine. I think we're going to do just Inferno though. Inferno, it's such a fun operation to run. Totally get why a lot of people love to run it. But we are also running it on average just because I didn't want this kind of series of videos to be something where like, hey, use this at the higher difficulties. Just wanted this to be something more of where like you can kick back, relax, and have fun. You can play it on whatever difficulty. If you do want to try it out on some of the higher difficulties, be my guest. Personally, this isn't going to be something that I'm going to run on maybe like Ruthless, Lethal, or Absolute. But it would be at least fun, you know, hey, if you're just looking to kind of mindlessly slay the enemies of the Imperium, perfect setup to use in that. Plus, it allows you to kind of roleplay a little bit as the Imperial Fist. But we are going to be hopping over into the gameplay part of it. So If you are interested, feel free to stick around. If you just kind of wanted an idea and you want to go run out and do it on your own, hey, more power to you. Completely appreciate you tuning in regardless and that. But that's what we're going to be getting into now. So just want to take this moment to say thank you for watching. Let's get into the gameplay. There's going to be kind of minimal commentary from me at this point. A lot of it's just going to be calling out some things kind of as we go through. But yeah, so let me know, are there any Space Marine chapters that you would like to see kind of a build based around? I do have a couple that I've been thinking about doing. I think one of the next ones would actually be a Raven Guard, since, well, their customization DLC was just released. And pretty fitting. Plus, I've actually been having a lot of fun with the sniper. There's a build that I have in mind for it. But definitely feel free to let me know what chapter you would like to see down in the comments, and I have no problem taking the time out to go and research them and trying to figure out if there is a build that we can make in the game. Now, in terms of the armor and stuff like that, the cosmetics, we might not be able to nail that part, but we will try to keep the spirit of the chapter alive. So that being said, one of the questions that I also have for you all is, if you are a fan of the Imperial Fist, do you have a particular member that you're a big fan of? For me, it's definitely got to be Sigismund. Not only was he the father of my personal favorite chapter, that being the Black Templars, but he was also an incredibly good duelist. And I mean, the whole fact that he kind of went through and started just slaying Chaos champions during the Battle of Terra, I think that was freaking awesome. I mean, that dude was literally only stopped by, let's be honest, Abaddon had some wicked plot armor for him. And that was really the only thing that was kind of able to stop old Sigma. But that is one of the other things, though. Speaking of the Black Templars, I will throw out is, unfortunately, when I kind of looked into a lot of the Imperial Fist lore, I noticed they were pretty prevalent and pretty important kind of before the Horus heresy, and during it. However, I would definitely say that following that, it kind of felt like the Black Templars took over. Now, I know there is a whole lot of 40k lore, so I could be wrong, but I definitely feel like they don't get a lot of the love that they used to get. Which is kind of a shame, because the Imperial Fist, this was a legion that, you know, during the Battle of Terra, and that, especially during the initial part of it, it kind of held at bay a lot of the forces of Chaos. So there was the whole incident with the Istvan ambush of a lot of the other chapters. On top of that, Horus, you know, being the dastardly man he was, sent the Ultramarines at least. And I know there was another chapter that you kind of moved out of the defensive area of Terra. So really, like, the Imperial Fist, of course, with the help of the Custodes and the Imperial Guard, they held it down, but they actually kind of fought the forces of Chaos to a pretty bloody stalemate. And that is no small task. So that whole part of the lore, that's probably one of my personal favorite pieces to deal with the Imperial Fist. And of course, they are kind of the main chapter that brought me my personal favorite one, that being the Black Templars. Now, that is something that I do use quite a bit, regardless. The Black Templar kind of setup. I think I still have one for just about every class in here, so obviously the Bulwark would be the best way to go for them. Don't know if we'll do a Black Templar setup. Maybe that'll be something down later on, but it'd probably be something similar to what I typically run with the Bulwark. But as you can see so far, I'm not gonna lie, we did misplay a little bit there early at the beginning. Overall though, this class, it's still doing pretty decent with the setup. You know, we are keeping our armor up and about. Like I said, initially, there was a bit of a misplay on my end. And I think whenever we get a nice little section here that we can drop the banner, we're going to do that. Now, if I was playing with human partners, probably be a little bit more likely to just drop the banner. However, with the AI teammates, I don't have anybody who has a perk that's going to allow me to refresh my ability quicker. So the main idea is going to be to try and use it. Where do we have like a wave coming in? And again, just keep in mind, this playthrough right now that you're watching, it is only on average. Just because some classes, especially on some of those higher difficulties, you definitely have to have them set up a certain way if you're looking to min-max them as best you can. And I don't want this series to be something where it's only going to be high-level stuff, because I feel like we really won't be able to have a whole lot of fun with it. And one of the other questions that I do have for everyone, so I've been playing, I will say for me personally, I know there's a lot of stuff going on currently with Space Marine 2 that's got some mixed opinions, but for me personally, I do tend to play mostly on Ruthless. Currently, it's been substantial just because my cousin's trying to rank up his sniper class, and we're having mixed results with that. He's still trying to get some adjustment into how that class works. But I do think at some point here soon, we are going to be bumping back up to Ruthless. And I will say it's something I definitely have fun with. But I'm just kind of curious on a couple things, honestly. The first one being is I've heard some people say that the game is too hard. Now, there are definitely people that I've seen, make comments that, it's very much Souls-like. I've never played a Souls game, but I'll be honest with you, from everything that I've seen from it, I don't think I would say this game is anywhere near Souls-like. I do think that, on the higher difficulties, it is a challenge, but it's never felt unfair. The best way I can kind of describe it is, it reminds me of like Halo 1 or Halo 3 and that, where Legendary, it was definitely a challenge. However, it was a fair challenge. As long as you were doing everything correctly in that, you were probably going to make it out okay. But it is just something I've been seeing within the community, that they're having some people who've said that the game has gotten too challenging. Now, granted, the whole Swarmine situation, yes, that's totally something that should not be going on. To my knowledge, Saber is working to fix it. I kind of would have thought by now it would have been something that's patched. Unfortunately, though, it hasn't been. That's one of the questions I do have is, do you feel that the game is currently too difficult? Or I guess just overall too difficult? Because I think we can all agree that, the whole Spore Mine situation is a little unbearable. I was kind of hoping that melt-a-bomb there would get planted right under them. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. We are going to focus, though, on putting out these orange ropes. But the other thing that I was kind of curious of is,
Not what we are looking for.
do you all feel that any of the weapons still need a buff? Now, I know, having played this when it first came out, yeah, some of the weapons definitely felt a little weak. I will say, overall, I do feel that the weapons are in a much better spot than what they were when the game first launched. However, that being said, I would still say that some of the weapons just, they can feel a little lackluster on some of the higher difficulties. Now, granted, I know when you're playing on like lethal or absolute, just because you have a relic tier weapon, you don't want the game to feel like you're playing on autopilot. But that being said, there have definitely been times, specifically, I'm going to throw the power sword under the bus here and that, where on some of those difficulties, I've noticed I've had to hit some of the Minoris enemies multiple times just to take them out, which I'm okay with. I've still been able to go through, beat every operation on absolute. But it is something that does kind of take me out of the game for a moment here and there. Not sure what happened there. Obviously, as you see on screen, we hit the appropriate input for it, but still couldn't get that. Now, that is something that I have seen on some other videos and that, of people making comments that it feels like their parry button and their dodge buttons haven't been working. Now, I will say, when I play on just regular lobbies and that, sometimes my connection isn't the greatest. Oh yeah. It's definitely not working the way I felt it used to. However, that being said, hasn't been anything that I felt has been too unplayable. But I am just kind of curious to hear from you all. Is that something you've had an issue with? And the other thing I'm kind of curious about, has anybody had any luck with the Spore knockback challenge? I don't know what it is, but I definitely feel like I've completed it, or I should have at least more than 0. I'm not sure if it's a bug. I've heard other people say that they feel that it is bugged. But just have not been having good luck completing that challenge, which is a shame because it's the final challenge in that particular category that I do need to complete. And there's something about, you know, the old tism that it tickles every time I go into the old data vault there and I check it and it's like still got 0 out of 30. So let me know. Is that something that am I maybe doing something wrong? Because I definitely can see on screen at times spores being knocked back, but nothing counting towards anything. Oh, and one thing I did want to point out with one of the perks in this class, so if you are still here, definitely greatly appreciate you. It does not matter what kind of ranged attack you take, the damage is all the same towards whatever enemies are in front of you.
Preparations were close before the guard was wiped out.
And the main reason I throw that out is because there was a moment, I'm sure you saw in this gameplay, where I was trying to block some of the attacks from the Zoranthropes. When I initially first did it, I actually ended up kind of taking a pretty decent beating, just trying to pass off some of that damage to nearby enemies, and I was kind of noticing that, for me at least, those little orb attacks that they do would have definitely caused a lot of damage on me. However, they were not causing a lot of damage on some of the surrounding enemies. So just something to keep aware, keep aware of. But, you know, it doesn't matter if you're getting shot by a Hormigaunt or a Termagant. I forget which one it is that does the range damage. But regardless of the fact of whether or not you block it, it's still going to do the same amount of damage. Also, just something if you are struggling at higher difficulties. So typically there is a little one of those hive pods that comes down right here. If you do stand just right here, very, very easy way to forgo that little part of this area. So we'll just top up on health here since we have a stim available. Now, one thing I do want to say is that playing with bots, it is no substitute for playing with other human players. I will notice, at least for me in particular, I do tend to take a lot more damage when I'm playing with bots than what I do other human players. I think that's because, you know, the bots, they are what they are, but they can only do so much.
Tyranids nearing Generator 3! arm is in best command.
Oh, I'm glad we caught that on video right there. I don't think that's something I've ever seen before. Thankfully, 'cause it's just an AI, he respawned, but my man was just trying to transcend dimensions right there. He must have been tuned into the stream earlier. He's got a few Bud Lights in him. That is right. We do have the gene seed, so we don't have to really check in there. And just in case we get a Terminus level enemy here, we'll grab that just single shot for our bolter pistol. Who knows? That could be the difference between life and death.
As long as we need.
There we go. So we did get little boss spawn. Also, just a quick little tip there. Whenever you notice that the North rope is not taking any more damage while it is on the ground, that means it's about to get up, and it will immediately go into that particular attack pattern right there. So just kind of something to be aware of. For one of these absolutely flawless executions. There's nothing better than ripping off a Northrop's arm and then proceeding to stab it to death with it. So let's see if we can just bring these guys in a little bit closer. And we are coming up here now to the end of the operation. So far, I'd say this class, you know what? Hey, if I was just wanting to kick back and relax, this might be something I would use. It is a nice change from just kind of keeping the banner for invigorating icon. Now, granted, I don't have teammates here that I'm really super worried about. The AI can actually be kind of tough to kill, so... But if I was playing with actual humans and that, we'd probably be dropping the banner a lot more. But that being said, one other thing I do want to throw out is I have noticed that the Tyranids always will guaranteed spawn on the left. Now, as you can see over here, they are going to be moving in on our right. However, whether they spawn off this little bridge right here or over there, they are guaranteed to spawn in on the left. So I personally always prefer to open up that particular fuel point. Yeah, probably should have grabbed some sort of grenade before we started this, but able to do that. They're going to be moving in on our right. Just throw up a couple of grenades like we're sending off Hail Marys right there. Still at least have one grenade in our back pocket. We're not even going to worry about setting a fire trap.
Who else is ready?
Oh, and it looks like our game's going to freeze right there. Overall, though, as you can see, the class, it's pretty fun. Unfortunately, I think we kind of broke the game a little bit there at the end of it. It is what it is, but overall, that is a pretty fun class to use, especially if you want to role play as the Imperial Fist. But with that being said, that's going to be our first video of this. Feel free, as always, to let me know down in the comments what chapter you would like to see next, and we will try to build a class based around that. But as always, thank you all for tuning in, and we're going to catch you next time.